is Senator De Leon. Item number 10, SB 767. Welcome.
Chairman Mainshine, I am incredibly honored to be here before you. This is my first time that I actually get to present a bill before you, and this new bipartisan era truly is alive and well. You are the first member of the GOP, chair of a committee that I'm addressing that I can remember in most recent memory. So I'm very honored to have an opportunity to present to you. And to the members, Madam Vice Chair, and to my colleagues. Thank you very much, Mr. Manshine, as well as Madam Vice Chair, as well as members, for an opportunity to present SB 767, which will allow the voters of Los Angeles County to decide. And let me underscore and emphasize and highlight the word decide if the local sales tax should be increased by 0.5 cent to fund transportation projects in the County of Los Angeles. If approved by 2/3 of Los Angeles voters, the revenues will fund projects to improve transit, public transit, reduce traffic congestion, and promote a sustainable regional development. Los Angeles, as we all know very well, is one of the most congested transportation corridors in the entire country. And with projected population growth of more than 1.5 million in the next 30 years, we can assume that congestion will only get worse unless we make the necessary investments to improve mobility in the County of Los Angeles. Traditional fuel tax revenues are simply not keeping pace with inflation and with the advancement of fuel-efficient vehicles and alternative fuel cars. While these desired technological advances are fantastic, the reality is, and the irony is too, is that they are in fact reducing funding. Consequently, counties have turned to the voters to provide the authority and funding for priority transportation projects. In 2008, Los Angeles County voters approved Measure R that generated billions for transit as well as highway improvements, $36 billion over a course of 30 years. Although Measure R is drastically changing transportation in Los Angeles, the bottom line is that with the largest and most congested county in the country, we drastically need more investments. Residents, local government, as well as transportation bipartisan leaders in the region support thousands of worthy projects, especially transit projects that will not be funded by Measure R. What Senate Bill 767 does not do, it does not impose a tax. Let me underscore that point for my Republican colleagues. It does not impose a tax. Rather, it exempts the county from a 2% transaction and use tax cap that authorizes LA Metro to develop a 0.5 cent sales tax ordinance, which will be before the voters, and they ultimately will have an opportunity to decide either yay or nay. Allowing LA County voters to explore this new sales tax option will allow the region to determine its own future. As we all know, Mr. Chair, as well as colleagues, we are in an extraordinary session to deal with the issue of the crumbling infrastructure. We surely don't know what the outcome will be, but the folks in LA County are ahead of the curve, irrespective of what the outcome is in the extraordinary session. They're ahead of the curve, let me emphasize once and again, taking control of their own destiny. The county, again, will be able to expand its transit system and address the key needs in the county. Again, this is a very bipartisan measure. Mr. Chair, I thank you very much for the indulgence. Madam Vice Chair, who is busy, I know, working the phones right now. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
All in a very partisan nature, unlike the chair, move the bill.
Thank you, Madam
We have a motion and a second. Witnesses in support.
Michael Turner on behalf of the LA County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I'd like to thank Senator De Leon for carrying this measure for us. It's a tremendous opportunity, we think, to make a number of improvements across Los Angeles County. Ever since we passed Measure R, there's been a continuing dialogue about what else needs to be done. The board has instigated a process, what we call the mobility matrices process, where we're working with all of our partners in the subregions to identify what would go into the next ballot measure, what it would look like the projects it would fund. We're working with the councils of governments. We're working with a number of stakeholder groups around the county, from our partners in organized labor to our partners in the environmental community, the business community. And through that process, we hope to develop consensus on what this next ballot measure looks like and the projects and programs that are funded by it. So again, I'd like to thank Senator De Leon for carrying this measure, and we thank you for your support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kristen Slocum, representing Mobility 21, 6,000 plus members throughout Southern California, and we strongly support Senate Bill 767. Our Southern California region spans 7 counties, including Los Angeles, Ventura, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, and San Diego. The benefits of mobility and a strong economy are critical to our region, and we strongly urge your support of this bill.
Other witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Dunn here on behalf of the Self-Help Counties Coalition, the statewide organization of the counties that have adopted this half-cent sales tax. And let me be clear, this bill does not impose the tax, and then once it goes to the voters, it's a 2/3 vote. So this has great protections for the taxpayers. We have expenditure plans that lay out explicitly the types of programs that have been developed through the process described. So this is a great way for the citizens of the counties to set their own priorities and then step up and fund them themselves, to have a reliable source of revenue. As we know, the state has not yet been able to establish a consistent, reliable source. The federal government's been negligent as well. Self-Help County movement invests billions of dollars annually, and I believe everyone on this dais has a Self-Help County component in your home districts that has not only delivered on the infrastructure promises that they've made with the voters, but also created tens of thousands of jobs that have kept our economy moving. And I believe that the next speaker will talk a little bit more about those jobs, but I would ask for your yes vote on this measure. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. I'd like to associate my comments with that of Mr. Dund. Obviously, the county has done a really excellent job at fixing the problems that they have now. Certainly more is needed. They're going to go back to the voters and articulate what those needs are, and the voters should decide whether they will actually be able to fund those. But in the absence of, I think, more federal and state dollars, it's inherently incredibly important for the counties to be able to step up and actually finance their transportation needs. In the LA Orange County area, we have about 150,000 members. This program that the LA County has done in our partnerships with the people at LA County has produced tremendous economic opportunities for our members and their families, and urge your support.
Thank you. Further witnesses in support, name and organization only, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Andrew Antwi here today on behalf of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the City of Santa Monica in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd Blumstein for the Southern California Contractors Association, representing the employers in the construction industry in support.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. David Wolf with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're opposed to this authorization. And members, let me underscore that we have a long-standing history of being opposed to these authorizations. When Assemblyman Fuhrer ran his AB 2321, which ultimately authorized Measure R in Los Angeles County in 2008, we did oppose that as well. So there is a long-standing precedent for our opposition on these things. The issue here, members, is not the authorization and it's not the 2/3 vote. We certainly understand that this bill requires that, and that's okay. The issue here, however, is the exemption from the 2% Bradley-Burns sales tax rate. This has been in place since 1955, and it's been in place for a reason, because it provides and protects businesses from tax inefficiencies and complications for various retailers. And it also should be noted, members, that these sales tax increases and these exemptions that are occurring now up and down the state are getting very dramatic and very excessive for local taxpayers. There are some municipalities in California right now that have combined local sales tax rates of over 10%. It's incredibly regressive, and it just can't warrant or merit further exemptions out of this cap, no matter how important the projects are for the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, in our view. So for those reasons, we ask for a no vote.
Any other witnesses in opposition? Questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Holden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to join in and congratulate the author and Metro for moving this along. I'm a principal co-author of this bill, and certainly very interested in its success. I just have one question just to sort of get some feedback. You were describing the expenditure plan and the outreach to local government, regional governments. Is there a sense of how projects that were identified under previous ballot measures and have yet to be completed, how those projects are going to be treated in this process?
Yes, as we work with the subregions, we sort of generally group projects in almost two categories. One is you could look at projects that were in Measure R that are yet to be completed. And there are one thing that's important about that is every project that was in Measure R had an aspirational end that was not fully funded. Another way of saying that is that no project in Measure R was fully funded. And so there are a series of projects like the Foothill extension of the Gold Line, Crenshaw going north, others that could have additional extensions that would be a part of this process. And then there are new projects that people are proposing. So we're getting feedback from the subregions about priorities in both of those categories, and then we'll sort out with them which projects are ultimately make it into the ballot measure.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cooley.
Yeah, I just want to say I think this is a good measure, and I understand the 2% limitation has been around for a long time under Bradley Burns. I think this is transportation issues. You know, mobility is life. If you do not have mobility, it'll affect the economy of the region. The quickest way to step on the air hose, frankly, of a region is to let their transportation assets decline. I think we have a cap that is being proposed here. It is not open-ended, the 0.5%. So on the ballot, voters would understand what that is. And I think you have sort of the scenario here where people can look and, with respect to transportation, can assess, here's where we are today, and they can form an opinion whether they feel that's good or bad in their view. Here's where we could be tomorrow if we had additional revenues. That's what this sort of ballot measure would present. And here's how it go from A to B. If they don't like the status quo, this is a path to change. There are specific types of projects would be considered. I think this is, frankly, the way to tee up for the public a change question. Here's where we are today, which is bad for these reasons. Here's where we could be tomorrow. Here's how I go to A to B. It is fixed, confined, presented to them. I think it's reasonable. Most people would not know of the 2%, but they can fit this number within what they encounter in their own life. So I think it's a good proposal and a lot of good boundaries around it.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Senator, I want to thank you for coming here today and presenting this. I want to thank you for your nice comments. Having said that, this may be one bill where we're not quite all of us on the same bipartisan sense. I don't want that to spoil your opinions of Republicans chairing committees.
Never. No.
So I want to be sure and clarify that. Generally speaking, we work very well in a bipartisan fashion, but today I'm not totally certain on that. But I do want to thank you for bringing this measure. I know it's important to you personally and to your region. So thank you for bringing that. And with that, you may close.
Well, thank you much, Mr. Mainchen. And this will never color, obviously, the respect that I have for you as chair and a fine representative of Northern San Diego County. I'm also very appreciative of the very wonderful majority leader of the State Assembly and his perspective, especially advocating for his region, which is very critical, which is very important. I think that, as we move forward at the sub-level, all voices need to be heard. Absolutely critical, and promises have to be fulfilled. And I really appreciate, Mr. Cooley's perspective. It's a more long-term perspective, and the reality is, and I'm very, Mr. Wolf does a wonderful job with his advocacy. Little, perhaps, rigidity with regards to Bradley Burns, because one of the things that we need to deal with is sustained economic growth, especially for the 13th largest economy, which is LA County. In the aggregate, obviously, California is the 7th largest GDP on Earth. But LA County, with goods movement, especially with the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, we can't impair this economy. We have to grow this economy with the crumbling infrastructure that has the potential to really severely truncate and stunt the continued economic growth of the region. Therefore, we need these continued investments, because with these investments, we have the ability to leverage, if you will, more dollars from the private sector, investing more than actually what is conceivably possible if the voters of LA County actually give us, the opportunity and honor us with the opportunity to move forward with the vote in 2016. And in fact, with a 2/3 threshold, pass it. With that capital, we're able to leverage more with the quality of the paper that we have right now when we go to the market, create more jobs, streamline the infrastructure, build upon it, improve it. And I can tell you one thing, because I have a lot of respect for Mr. Wolf and his advocacy and what he does. But if Howard Jarvis spent a day on the 405 at rush hour as congested it is, or Hollywood 101, I think he will lead the charge for a half-cent sales tax in LA County. So with that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Holden, a second from Mr. Cooley, and I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
The motion is do pass, and we refer to the Committee on Transportation. Mainshine.
No.
Mainshine, no. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Alejo, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Cooley. Cooley, aye. Gordon. Gordon, aye. Holden. Holden, aye. Linder. Linder, no. Waldron. Waldron, no.
Your measure is out 6-3. Congratulations, Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Vice.
Thank you. Next item is item number 4, SB 379, Senator Jackson. Welcome. Senator, welcome. I have to go present a bill, so I've asked Ms. Gonzalez if she would chair until I return, so welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much, and I won't take that as a personal affront. Madam Chair and members, first I'd like to accept the committee's suggested amendments on page 6 as author's amendments, and want to thank your staff for working with us on this measure. We know that climate change is probably the foremost challenge of our time. We all know that California has become a leader in mitigating the effects of climate change by developing a strong program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But there is much work that needs to be done at the state, regional, and local level to adapt to the effects of climate change that we're already experiencing. And I could point to the weather today as an example of that, but I know that there have been years prior where we've had warm weather like this, but not with the number of fires that are going at this time, and the fact that we are in a significant drought that is being experienced in all different parts of the world, and the fact that we are now at a point where it is no longer whether there is climate change, but how do we adapt to its effects. There are many efforts underway here in California by the administration to address climate change, and there are bills moving through the legislature that would require better coordination by state agencies, one of which we heard by Assemblymember Gordon this morning in the Senate Environmental Quality Committee. This measure focuses on efforts at the local level. Currently, there is no requirement in law that local governments consider climate adaptation as part of their general plan process in planning for the future of their communities. SB 379 would help solve that problem by requiring local governments to update the safety elements in their general plans to include a vulnerability assessment and climate adaptation strategies. Updates would be required the next time they update their local hazard mitigation plans, which are done every 5 years, which many local governments have already done. So this would be effective beginning January 2017. If they don't have one, they would have until January 1, 2022 to do it. The bill specifies information they'll have to collect and would require them to establish goals, policies, and implementation measures similar to what is already required for flood and fire planning in the safety element. So we are not reinventing the wheel or changing terms. We're just saying, as you consider those aspects, consider them in terms of adaptation to climate change. There are also provisions that allow local governments to take advantage of work already done. Hate reinventing the wheel, doesn't have to be done. And the amendments I've accepted today provide further clarity. This will save local governments money, which I know is of concern. I continue to have ongoing meetings with stakeholders, and as a result of recent amendments, both the Chamber of Commerce and the BIA have removed their opposition. I'm continuing to work with the American Planning Association and the League of Cities to address remaining concerns as best we can that deal with figuring out how to better coordinate the updating of hazardous mitigation plans and the safety element as discussed on page 6 of the committee analysis, since both processes utilize different staff. And the other issue is a possible definition of climate adaptation, which the League has asked for us to prepare. This measure represents a significant step forward that will help ensure that cities and counties are providing for the safety of their communities into the future as the effects of climate change continue to evolve, and working on the variety of different levels to make sure the state and all of its local jurisdictions have addressed this issue and continue to address it as we are required to adapt to the sad inevitabilities that we are seeing as part of climate change and the need to adapt. And with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote and have witnesses here to testify in support.
First witness in support.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Loomer with the Nature Conservancy, and we're pleased to support SB 379. We believe SB 379 is an important step forward in helping California's communities develop resiliency to the impacts of climate change, and appreciate the author's willingness to work with us to incorporate natural infrastructure into the planning and analysis required by the bill. We believe utilizing natural infrastructure is important because it leverages natural processes to reduce risk to human lives, property, and business. These efforts include reconnecting floodplains and protecting riparian areas to help reduce flood risk, conserving and restoring wetlands to buffer against sea level rise, promoting urban forests to reduce heat island effect, and ecological management of forested watersheds to reduce fire risk and improve water supply reliability. SB 379 will help ensure that cities and counties provide for the greater safety and protection of their communities by including climate adaptation strategies in their planning. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Madam Chair and members, Monica Miller on behalf of the County of Santa Barbara, and we thank the author for introducing this measure. We appreciate that it's part of the housing element because that will allow for the regions to look at it from a regional perspective, and we think that's really key. So we look forward to moving forward with this legislation and urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Just your name, organization.
Sandy George, representing the American Planning Association. We're actually in support if amended. So I just wanted to thank the committee for the amendment on the equivalency language, and we are trying to work directly in incorporating this process with the hazard mitigation plan, because right now they're not only not coordinated, but planners aren't at the table. So that's really what we're working on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Christy Bama on behalf of the California Professional Firefighters in support.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in support. Kelly Dunn on behalf of California League of Conservation Voters in support.
Nicolo DeLuca, City of Oakland, in support.
Claire Desser on behalf of Audubon in support.
Great. Witnesses in opposition?
Madam Chair, members, Jason Ryan, League California Cities. We are listed in opposition. However, I'm confident that we're going to get there and be able to remove our opposition. The senator and her staff have really bent over backwards to meet with us repeatedly. Have taken a number of our amendments. Appreciate the amendment taken today. Again, we are in opposition now, but I do think we're going to be able to remove that opposition, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? All right. With that, comments, I think, Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, let me, I do have a quick comment, but I also want to move the bill. My comment is that I'm hopeful that as we think about this, at the local level, we also think not just city by city, but we do have to think regionally. Because we know, for example, from work that's been done in coastal zones that you put up, a breakwater somewhere, it affects the next door neighbors.
Right.
So as we think about adaptation, we do need to think, I think, also regionally and encourage regional thinking and regional coordination as these cities plan. But I am pleased to support the bill, and as said, I've moved it.
Any other comments? Mr. Gordon moved the bill. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Chu. Any closing?
Very briefly, the bill does also encourage that regionalism. Couldn't agree more. Nature doesn't stop at a city or a county line, and look forward to continuing the work that we're doing, and appreciate that this is an issue that we have to address, and appreciate your support in asking for an aye vote.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Mainshine. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Gonzalez, aye. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Chu. Aye. Chu, aye. Cooley. Aye. Cooley, aye. Gordon. Aye. Gordon, aye. Holden. Aye. Holden, aye. Linder. Waldron.
So that bill's out 6-0.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you.